You. Yes, you. Who's watching? We'll find out. Welcome to Devil's Advocate. This is the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. I'm Reece, your host for this evening. That's Jamie. Underneath me is Lee Lawrence. We'll be talking to him very shortly. He is a former Man United player and obviously in the Youth Academy as well, so that's a great piece. He's also on Talk of the Devils podcast. He's a brilliant guy, worth talking. And obviously on far bottom side, I need to really remember where I'm pointing these days. That's shocking behaviour. You got Struan as well, who covers not only Manchester United as a Manchester United fan, but he also covers Hibs women as well. That's a covering there. So it's great to have a wide range of fans today. So, gentlemen, how are you this evening?
All good, mate. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Spot on, mate, as always. Always good to see you, Reece.
I'm good as well.
Well, that I'm glad to hear. You are my esteemed guest this evening. Welcome to the chat, obviously, and first appearance in from what I can say, is first appearance for Lee. So, former United player, played in the academy. If there's any questions that you guys want me to ask Lee tonight, get them in the live chat. I will put them up on the screen. And of course, first comment is from Michael. Good evening to you as well, mate. Hope you're well. Gentlemen, we do have a lot to cover. I know it's probably not the best taste at the moment as a United fan in terms of where we're at the moment, like not just on the field but off the field. We did get quote unquote mauled at the weekend. Like I have to use the words by Gary Neville, even though it's not how I would want to describe it, but it's probably the best way to describe that performance at the weekend. We got mauled by Manchester City. Painful it was to see. The fact is we didn't even turn up, but we can't even use the same. I think using that phrase now is irrelevant because it's happened a lot, not only this season but last season as well, where we just in games we just didn't show up and we got what we deserved. So I'm gonna come through to you one by one, just give your honest opinions, or even go as far as you want in terms of the overall game at the weekend. Like, how are you feeling, Jamie? I'm going to start with you based on that performance, because we've all seen where we spoke last week about Liverpool, we spoke about Spurs, we spoke about Atlanta in the Champions League, but just based on that Man City performance, how are you feeling as a fan?
Obviously, really disappointed. We've got high standards at this club, and we expect a certain level of performance from 11 players in a red shirt, and we're just not getting that at the moment. And the bigger issue for me was I generally think the performance and the whole feeling around that game was actually worse than Liverpool. And considering we got beat 5 goals by Liverpool at home as well, it actually felt like it felt worse. I just felt like Man City didn't get out of third gear and we couldn't get near them, to the point of they generally didn't need to make a sub. We were that poor, and I think it's becoming acceptable at Man U now that it's just that's an acceptable performance and we just move on. And maybe like we've all got it wrong. Maybe that is the standard what we're at the moment. It's definitely the standard where we're at the moment, but maybe it's the standard of the club. Maybe we are just a top 4 team now, But like you can't perform like that in the derby. It doesn't matter what level you play at, and I'm sure Leo will touch on it later, being from the academy, even from the younger generations of derbies. Like if you're in the under 19s, the under whatever, it doesn't matter. Like if you're playing Man City or you're playing Liverpool, you've got personal pride, and I just don't see that at the moment, Reece, in that team. I don't see any pride, any professionalism, any like desire from them players, and I feel like quite bad saying it. Obviously, I've supported United my whole life. Do you know what I mean? And but I have a certain standard and expectations, and when they can't even get up for a Manchester derby, mate, you wonder what direction the club's going in at the moment. And it would be great to hear Lee's take on it from coming through the system at United and knowing the standards of that club and the levels we operate at. But it was
I wholeheartly agree, mate.
Performance wise, it was awful, wasn't it? I mean, we just couldn't lace. I likened it to a boxing fight, and it was just like a British level boxer being in with a world class operator, and we just couldn't get near them. And the golfing class is massive from a footballing perspective, but I'm not going to say too much on it because I'll let the other lads speak. But yeah, just really, really disappointed and downbeat, really. But it sums up the whole club at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do see where you're coming from, and obviously any opinion, all opinion on it is mostly welcome, especially in the live chat as well. It's hard to disagree with what Michael's saying. Very depressing to see Man United are playing awful. I've been a Man United fan for about 20 years, and the pain to see United in this manner is horrific. And there's even under Alex Ferguson, we all know that there were some games that were awful to watch because we just did not show. But the difference is unlike the team right now compared to teams under Alex Ferguson is the following week after you got a rollicking, after you got forced to work and training harder than you ever did, you saw it the next week. You saw the response where we got say we got beat 2-0 off Arsenal at Highbury at the time or whatever, like as an example, or even just a 1-0 defeat and we just did not perform. You would see it the following week against, say, like at the time, you would say maybe a Middlesbrough or a Newcastle or even Chelsea at the time. You would see it the following week where United would turn up and they would batter the opposition. You'd be like, where's that team from a week ago? But it's just that right now, I do get your point, and is in the sense of a standard and a level of standard, and we all have in our mind like United are like to us the best team in football, like the greatest team in football, like XYZ, because we grew up supporting them, and we will always support them. But there is a painful reality is like right now we aren't where we want to be, but if we actually can turn it around, we can be there. It's just right now we don't see it, but I do get where you're coming from in that perspective. Lee, not only are you a Man United fan, you also played for Manchester United. You also played in the academy. Fantastic representation for getting an opinion as well, not just from a fan perspective, but also playing for the club. What's your overall opinion right now for Man United? Not only from where we are right now, but also from that Derby performance. Like watching that, like how did that feel watching that?
First of all, good evening, guys. Glad to be on this show. Thanks for asking me to come on. The first comment that's come onto the podcast has hit the nail on the head. It's depressing at the moment. Like I say, I had the opportunity to play for Man United for 11 years. I grew up at Man United from being 9-year-old to obviously get into the get my first team squad number at 21. There was always a philosophy growing up at United. Like I said, what was installed with us at a very young age, and that was, we played for Man United. We knew what it was to play for Man United. We knew the history. We knew what it meant to play for the badge. You watch that game. Well, you watched the Liverpool game. Saying that, you watch the games all season. To be honest, let's not sugarcoat it. We've been terrible all season. We have, yeah. The first, 5-6 games, we did well to be where we was playing mediocre teams. You look back at it, we could have quite easily dropped all 3 points in the majority of the games we played. I think the big difference from when I was playing and the mentality what we had to what you watch now is, they don't play for the badge. For me, just they go missing. That game against Man City, yeah, we as a team, I don't think we're not up there yet with City. I don't think we've been up there with City for the last 4 or 5 seasons, even longer than that since
they're on such a different pedestal, you would say.
Yeah. What I would say was, although they're not up there with the quality, the heart should be there, the desire, the courage. I mean, how many players did you see who wanted to get on the ball and actually play and try and make something happen? To me, there was hiding behind each other. They didn't want the ball. It was damage limitation all match. It's like they went into the match with, all right, we know we're going to lose, but let's keep it to a sensible score. Let's not get hammered like we did off Liverpool. That's not the Man United mentality you should have.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Can I ask you a question? How did it make you feel? And I'll come to the live comments in a minute because there's some great comments. I'll come to you guys in a minute, but just a personal question, and guys, get your opinions on this as well. But just for Lee and your perspective, being a Man United player, because you are an outfield player, do you find it insulting that an outfield player was being outmatched and outperformed by your goalkeeper? And obviously, I've got that's not a disrespect to David De Gea at all. That is no disrespect. He was the past all season. He's been fantastic, but against Liverpool, even though he conceded 5 goals, against Man City where he conceded twice, he's been our standout performer all season. And it's similar to what it was like 2-3 years ago, where he was quote unquote the main man in the team, like where we had to rely on him for everything. As an outfield player, would you not feel a bit insulted that you're being like outmatched by your goalkeeper? Because obviously the goalkeeper's job is just to protect the net, but the outfield players are the ones that are supposed to be trying to win the game.
I just think it shows where we are as a team, to be honest. If I'm being 100% honest with you, you're playing in an 11 and you don't expect week in, week out for, your goalkeeper to be up there being the man of the match. How many times has he saved us? I've said it on the podcast a few times. If it wasn't for him or Ronaldo this season, where would we be? You know what I mean? Where would we be now? Because at the minute, the other players what we've got are just not turning up more or less any week, really. We've got all these big name players now. We're signing them for, massive amounts of money. The expectations there, the names are there. They're supposed to be these, world class players. For me, there's not really one of them shown, what they're worth. They should have done a lot better. How long can you? We keep saying they're a team of individuals. They need to become a team. Play as a team. I mean, look at the team Alex Ferguson had the last year we won the league. You're not telling me as an individuals they are better individuals than we've got now. They just was a team. They played as a team.
It's a shoot difference, yeah.
You tell me, Alex Ferguson era at half time when they walked in at half time, they all look like they come back down with their heads, the heads up their ass basically. It's like they don't get a reaction anymore. It's like they're too happy just to go and play. And I know personally watching them for years and being at the club, if that first half performance, if they would have put that in Alex Ferguson's era, they'd have come out and you would have got a reaction. They might not have won the game, but you would have got a reaction. You would have. The team would have looked like they would have wanted to get out there and win the game, which I can't think of a moment in that match I thought they want to go and try and win this. It just felt to me like I say, damage limitation. And
we only had one real chance. We only had one real chance, and that was the Ronaldo volley. Fair enough, it was a great strike, but you're right. There was nothing in it.
One shot on target all game against in the derby. You can't have that, can you? You know what I mean? Look at we got outrun, we got outplayed. The possession was, I think they had. I wrote it down somewhere. Nearly 70% possession. We passed the ball 400 times. They passed the ball 800 times. They absolutely passed us off the park. We couldn't get the ball back off them. It didn't look like we wanted to get the ball back off them. It was just a bad day off the office. But we're having bad days at the office now, more or less every other week. You know what I mean? So something's got to change, mate.
Do you think it's a lack of a fear factor there, Lee? Like, because you played in that team with Sir Alex, do you think it's a case of some of them players just don't have that fear factor with Ole, and maybe he's too much of a nice coach, and maybe we need somebody a little bit more like dare I say it, a Conte. I know we're not going to get him now, but like that type of manager that they're gonna have a little bit of that fear factor, because I don't see that now. And you'd had the privilege of being in a dressing room with Sir Alex, people like myself could only dream of that. But it's a case of, do you think that's what it is? Like watching this team now to sort of being in Sir Alex's dressing room and getting a telling off, like that type of managing, do you feel like that's what the club lack?
100%, James. I had this conversation a couple of days ago with a friend, and I think it's just football in general now. Like I say, when I was playing, I stopped playing at 21. I'm 37 now, so it's been a good few years. But we could get a bollocking. You was allowed to get a bollocking. We weren't. I wouldn't say we're not soft, because I don't think today's players are soft, but times have changed. You know what I mean? If we got a bollocking, you get a reaction out of us. Nowadays, the players are almost bigger than the club. If you understand where I'm coming from, they have the final say. That's not football anymore. And I do think there's a massive element in that, where if we had that kind of manager who would go in and kick a few of the lads' asses at half time, and they had the character to come back from that and show willingness to win the game, or willingness to actually compete, even if the team's better than you. Just go out there and compete, run harder than them. It's just lacking. Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with you, mate. I think they're not scared to win at half time losing at all. That they just want to go and pick up. For me, they want to go and pick up the wages, go for a nice meal straight after the game, which I can't get in my head. Post a nice little social media posts about we're sorry, we're going to do better next time. You can't keep doing that. You're doing it every week. Don't keep putting it on social media. Actually show the game after that. You are going to try and you're going to do better, instead of just posting it and everything goes back to normal.
I done the exact same. I'm about to come to your comments just a minute, guys, but there was it was the Harry Maguire response on his tweet or something, and I literally put, "I'm sick of your apologies. Don't just say it. show it. Like,
Yeah, that's it.
there's so many times you can say the word sorry before you really just want to be like, well, go fuck yourself. Like, because I don't want to.
Actions speak louder than words, isn't it, in that scenario?
Exactly. Before I come to you, Struan, I'm going to get your opinions on the derby and overall Man United and your perspective. I'm just going to cut a couple of comments. So Trevor says, evening Reece, great to see Jamie in tonight. He really does love United, Newcastle United. Yeah, he's not going to give you any time at all, although to be fair.
Just to give you a little bit of lowdown, lads, I live in Newcastle, so Trevor likes to remind me that I'm a Newcastle United fan, apparently. So.
Don't worry, mate. He's come for me as well. You'll see in the comments in a minute.
He snipers me every show, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's gone for me as well. Just watch. We're in a worse position now when we sacked Josie. I'll get your opinion on that very shortly, lads. Vicky saying good evening. Good evening to you as well. Matthew's a Liverpool fan. Oh, that's painful. I'm a Liverpool supporter, by the way. Man United have dominated the past 20 years, and now they're just in deep trouble. Also, easy team to beat at home. No disrespect. You're not wrong. Lee, be careful when Reece asks you a question. It could be about Dan James PG. Fuck off, Trevor. Everywhere I go. I'm not joking. Every time I'm on here, every time I'm on here, that follows me. Keane says the stadium lacked belief that we would do anything. It was sad. That's the worst thing is when you're home crowd, you don't get a reaction. Trevor says we brought in a new set piece coach and we haven't even scored from a set piece. That's very true. Was just thinking what Jamie said there that Lee played with Fergie. Jesus, he don't look a day over 30. Must be the good moisturiser.
I wish you'd tell my missus that because she wouldn't say that.
And question before I'm going to get you to answer this one, Struan, because I'll get your opinions on the derby as well. But comment from Vicky is: do you think that Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo came to the club too late? So based on the derby performance as well, what's your overall thoughts on that? What's your overall thoughts on Man United, and what's your thoughts on that question by Vicky there about Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo?
It's kind of hard to say on Ronaldo just because he has already been at United. I think it's almost like a swan song, a last dance at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think Sancho. Talking about Dan James PJs. I think Sancho's come at a good time, to be honest. I mean, I know we've been scouting him for 2 years at least. We've wanted him for a long time. He finally came in the summer. It looked like he was finally going to fill that right wing position, which we seem to have just been shoehorning players into for the past 5-6 years. But I don't know why he's not getting a game. And Varane's quite a difficult one because I was quite happy he came at the time he is. I think we've needed a centre-half in their prime, somebody who's not going to be good in 10 years or somebody who was good 5 years ago. We want somebody who's good here and now because I think a lot of people wanted us to challenge for the titles this season. And I think we've just been a little bit unfortunate the way signings have come in, Obviously, we saw with Donny van de Beek. I don't need to say anything else on that. Alex Telles is another one who's struggled to break into the team. It's been quite difficult to shake up the XI that we know. Your Lindelof, Maguire, Fred McTominay in the midfield, Rashford, Bruno. It's been quite hard to displace these players, and it's a tough one to see where we're going. But onto the derby, I totally agree with what Jamie said. We didn't get beaten 5-0 like we did against Liverpool, but it felt like that. It felt worse potentially. The players gave up. I think the Man City's writers for The Athletic said it almost looked like Man City were playing against 10, even 9 men, just the way they were passing it around easily. When the opposition fans start chanting Ole every time they make a pass, your team's not doing something right. And it just didn't feel great, to be honest. I was watching from home. You could hear the fans as well, like the Man City fans singing about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And you just wanted the players to kick on, something to happen on the pitch, but we just didn't see a response throughout the 90. It's a shame as well because we were dominated, to be honest. Man City should have won 5 or 6-0, but the 2 goals that we conceded, they were pretty poor as well. An own goal that Bailly should do better with. That second goal, I have absolutely no idea what kind of communication is happening in the back line there. It was a mess, really, and De Gea kept us in it, and that's something that we've been saying so often this season, is that De Gea is keeping us in matches. You think about the Villarreal victory, the West Ham victory, probably the 2 most notable this season that he's played a big part in. And it does feel like the seasons leading up to Jose Mourinho era that De Gea is literally changing these games. But given the talent, the quality that we have in our squad, that shouldn't be the case. You look at Man City and Liverpool, Ederson and Alisson are probably the 2 best goalkeepers in the league, but they don't have those kind of stellar performances. They don't make 6 or 7 saves a game. They make 1 or 2 when they really need to, and they do their job. The outfield players do the rest, and we're just struggling with that at the moment. It's a tough one, to be honest. I feel like I'm repeating myself every single week with United when you see the same issues and the same errors. And coming into this game, we saw it was a 3 at the back, and it did look like damage limitation. But as soon as we conceded, we just sort of kept playing in the same way, just let Man City have the ball. And I thought this season, we'd gradually catch up with them, but that performance at the weekend just sort of made you think we're a good 5 or 6 years behind Man City.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where do you think we are in that limelight? It's like how far back in. To be fair, I don't disagree with you. I think at the start of the season, I was saying we only needed like a few possessions and then we just kick on and then we should be fine. But now it's got to the point where I actually do not know where we go in terms of like, people are going to go for the obvious. Oh, we just have to sack the manager and we bring somebody else in, or we have to get rid of certain players and bring in people like, as Roy Keane says, you need players with characters. Like we all need this, we need that. But frankly, it's to the point where, as a fan, I don't know. I just want to see United win again, but it's not going to be easy. It's a very strong, difficult conversation to have, and obviously we'll be coming on to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer later on the show. I do have a question for you, Lee. This is from one of our viewers in the live chat. It's a question from Trevor. A good question by Trevor Behind. Instead of his usual chatting shite and bollocks and winding people up, he's actually asked a good question. He asked you, as you were there when Roy Keane played, what is your overall opinion of him as a captain and player in general?
Roy Keane as a general player was, I think, one of United's best ever captains, if I'm being honest. I don't, obviously you've watched the podcast what we do with Keane, and I'm the type of guy who likes a footballer who, wears his heart on his sleeve and puts his foot in and plays for the badge, and I think Roy Keane did that in abundance. On the field he was a leader, off the field he was a leader. Didn't like signing autographs up for kids, so that used to put me off him a little bit. When he used to take a shirt and he didn't like signing, he always thought you were slogging a shirt when it was for charity, so that used to do me in. But nah, as an actual player and as a leader, for me, he's one of the best United's had in the modern era, to be honest. For me, anyway.
I do appreciate that, and obviously we've all seen Keane just from, unless you had the privilege to physically be in the ground or play with him. Like the most of the time, you're going to say, like for me, 5-6 years watching him, it was on TV, and even his interviews as well. Like, not only does he have a great football brain and he talks the game so well, but he's incredibly funny as well when he talks football, because not like he'll have like the odd banter with you, like in terms of, like we see it all the time when he takes the mick out of Mika Richards and all that, and you see the relationship, or when he's taking the mick out of Gary Neville because it's Roy Keane, like he will do it because it's obviously it's his former player and all, and you see that. But just as a person, like hearing a former player speak about him as well, like it just gets to you. It's a great feeling as well, because like this is the guy that I played with, the guy I looked up to and all that, and he's like, and as a manner of speaking, I do have something I want to ask you, Lee, as well, because I've just been sent this by Keane. This is Man United's errors leading to shots, and this is like just going down the list. Jadon Sancho's got one, De Gea's got one, Matic has one, and Rashford has one. But the top two leading players for errors right now is the ones that are being talked about the most. Harry Maguire tops the list with 3, and Luke Shaw has 2 errors leading to shots at the moment, which unfortunately is leading to goals in it. Based on how they've been playing, obviously last season they were outstanding. They had a fantastic Euros as well, even though I didn't particularly like it, because obviously I'm not an England fan. But for any Man United player, like, doesn't matter where they are, like, you want them to do well. But since then, they've went really downhill. Just hearing that, and errors leading to shots alone, Maguire stands alone at the top on his own with 3 and then Shaw. And it's horrible to say this, but what's your overall opinions on Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw right now? Like, and do you think it's just a matter of confidence, or do you think they've been? Some people have said on social media, and I think it's worth asking yourself as a former player yourself. Do you think they've been overhyped a bit too much, and it's got into them mentally, and it's affected them performance-wise? Like, what's your opinion on Maguire and Shaw, just like, overall?
I'm not overly sure what's happened with them, if I'm being honest, because like I say, the Euros, they had a fantastic Euros. Since they've come back, Maguire looks robotic. He looks slow, pacey. He doesn't look like he's anticipating things what's going to happen beforehand. He looks like he's reacting to situations. He's not that player. He's not quick enough to react to situations. At the beginning of the season, it looked like he was reading the ball well, using his brain. It looks like that's gone now. He looks like he's no confidence whatsoever. Luke Shaw, a bit of the same. He looks like he doesn't get on the ball half as much as he was doing. He's not attacking half as much as he was doing. He doesn't look as quick. He doesn't look as strong. Whether it's a confidence thing, I don't know. But for me, you're supposed to be 2 of the best defenders in England. We all go through sticky patches. Every player I know has been through a sticky patch. But I think the issue runs deeper. I think the issue runs more with the back four. I can't see how that back four playing the way they've played this season are communicating properly at all. They look confused. They look like they don't know where to be. I mean, I was a left back when I played.
That's right.
And we always got taught, although he was playing, within a team of 11, that back, we used to play 4-4-2. That was my era. That's what we played. But you looked after that back four, so there was your own family. And the communication we had was second to none. You couldn't hear anyone else on that pitch because of the back four shouting and pulling people into position and telling you to cover around or drop off or pick up. I don't see any of that. You know what I mean? For me, they need to go back to basics all the way across the back four, because the positional sense of the full backs, especially Wan-Bissaka against City, was more than questionable. He's leaving.
Yeah, he was getting rinsed left, right, centre by Foden, and it was Jesus and all that.
And Foden's not even a wide player. You know what I mean? He didn't know if it would go tight and go Merkerman or drop off. It just didn't look like he knew what he was doing. So for me, I've all season, and I'm sure you've all said the same, that I've always thought the problems were stemming from a defensive central midfield player. I'm looking at it now, and I think it's the problems are coming from the back four and the two defensive midfield players. I don't think none of them have been good enough at all to play for Man United or even wanting to start. I think the problem is, who do you put in? If you drop Wan-Bissaka, you've got Dalot. He's not done real much since he's come back. Telles, he showed bits and bats, but
have you ever heard of a United team, Lee? Like, obviously you were at the club for a lot of years. Have you ever heard of a United team setting out a game at Old Trafford? And this, I'm not just talking about Liverpool, Man City here. I'm talking about other fixtures. I've been to Old Trafford a couple of times this year for the Villa and Everton games, and I've seen the same issue. And I can't. When I was younger going to Old Trafford, you were always wondering who the attacking players were, but it's now. Have you ever, like, with you being brought up in that system, can you even envisage a Man United team that's thinking more about having 6 defensive-minded players at Old Trafford on the turf? I just can't get it into my brain, and I know that you've got to manage certain games, and you're going to have to be a bit more sort of resolute against the likes of a Man City, for example, although it didn't happen. But you know what I mean, but we're setting up with 6 defensive players against Aston Villa. I just don't understand. It's I get what he's trying to do. Ollie is making us a counter-attacking team, but over the years, and I'm 32 years old. My hero was Kanchelskis. That was when I really started understanding football. When it was that era, Hughes, Keane, Kanchelskis, Lee Sharp, they weren't defensive-minded teams. They were very structured, and they knew how to drop off out of possession. But I think you made a really good point earlier when you said football has evolved. You don't necessarily get a Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira type player anymore. But it's you've got to be a little bit more braver if you're a Man United manager. And it's interesting having you on the show. It's great to get your insight because you were actually at the club. But when you've been coming through and you've been playing even in the lower level, not the first team, going up through the stages of the youth. Can you remember a Man United team thinking more about defense than attack? It just doesn't happen, does it? What's your take on that?
It's the first time really with, like I say, I've grown up same as yourself supporting Man United all my life, and obviously, like I say, I've gone up through the academy, and I can't ever remember actually going to a game or watching a side set up so defensive. When we used to play the traditional 4-4-2, Gary Neville, how many times did he get Wayne Beckham to get whipping a crossing? You know what I mean? And he used to play up there. Same on the right, on the left. Dennis Irwin used to get up there. They weren't scared to actually get up there because they knew they had the players to then drop back and help out if needs be. Like I say, it just looks like we're too scared to actually. I don't know if the guys have got the courage or whether that's coming from, not the guys, whether that's coming from the management or not, but they just don't look like they've got the courage to take the ball and actually do something. The only player what really looks creative for me in that midfield is Bruno. But Bruno, don't get me wrong, he sets up so many goals and scores so many goals. But even you look through a game, how many times he's given that ball away this season, and that's not helping either. You know what I mean? I've from last season to this season, I've seen so many times he's give that ball away, and then he'll turn around and whinge at another player and start whinging and moaning at another player. But that's not helping the team. If the team's low on confidence anyway, he's losing the ball and then turning around and having to go at someone else. That, for me, that can't be helping either. You know what I mean?
You got to get back in shape, ain't you?
There's a level of blame factor there that doesn't help, and I completely agree with you.
They're lacking a real leader. I think that's the main thing, that they're lacking, probably on the pitch and off the pitch. Just touching back on Roy Keane, like I say, on the pitch he was a leader, but around Carrington, if there was any nonsense going on or anything like that, and he's seen it, he'd be the one to stop it, and you would stop it because he was the leader. You know what I mean? I can't see that happening now at Carrington. I don't know who would have that position or that authority to do that. So I think that's a lot.
I honestly agree with you. I look at where we are in terms of leadership, and I know Harry Maguire is the club captain, but I disagree with him being the captain because I don't see evidence that he is a leader. But I see evidence that he is a good player. He's just in that patch right now where he's completely out of form. I don't think, because he's not in the best of form, playing him constantly is actually helping. It seems to be a detriment. But as a leader, I don't think he is. And I think that's what we're lacking, is we're lacking leadership. And I'm looking at some of the comments. That was up. Destruction by phones. Starring Lee Lawrence.
my lamp fell over.
Oh, that's awkward. I'm just looking at some comments.
A lot about Maguire, Reece. Just quickly, sorry to butt in, mate, but I think it says
no,
a
on you
lot,
go.
like,
by all means.
You know, when we got skilled by Liverpool by 5, and Maguire comes out and said on the interview, and this is quote for quote, you should have seen it anyway, "I'm only here because I have to be."
Yeah,
that's like that told me that he was shunted out of the dressing room and put in front of the camera purely for the fact of he wants the armband. Like, I just can't, like, the past captains, the Vidic is like sort of quite close by, Gary Neville's, Roy Keane's, they would have never have ever said that. They would have put their chest out and they would have took the blame. Like, you know, how many times did Gary Neville come out for England when we got knocked out of tournaments and stuff, and like put his chest out and he was ready to speak to the media? And that really hit home with me, that he's got the armband and he's the club captain of Manchester United. You're not talking a Sunday League team here. And then he's standing in front of the cameras when we've been completely humiliated. And it was on my birthday, I'll have you know, as well. So you can imagine how that was for a present. And then he sits there, and I was on my couch demoralized, man. And then he says, "I'm only here because I have to." And you're not for me, mate. Like, I'll support you while you've got the Reds top on, and I generally do think he's a quality defender. I don't think he's fit at the moment, but for me, that you can't answer that question with that type of answer as a captain of the club. Like, that is just a massive red flag for me, and that really worried me. I don't know about you lads, but I thought, you can't be wearing the armband if that's your mentality.
No, I agree. And I think the way that Billy summed up, especially about interviews, says, there's no passion in interviews from any of the players after games. It's all defeatist from them all. I think they've honestly accepted it, and they're just running with it, and it really doesn't help. Billy's going, I used to think Bruno deserved the armband more, even though he looks defeated. He does. It's a shame. Like, he's such a fantastic player, but he looks like he's trying to do too much when around him they should be doing more to suit him, and it doesn't work. Mrs. Ankit, Chelsea fan, Almighty Blues FC. As an outsider, I feel captaincy is an issue as well. Surely Ronaldo deserves the armband as he cares from what I see. It's not necessarily about who cares. It's about who's the right person to actually lead the team, in my opinion. And whether it's going to be Ronaldo or whether it's going to be Bruno Fernandes or whether it even be David De Gea from his own freaking net. It doesn't matter who the captain is. I actually want to see them show the authority on the pitch. That's why Roy Keane stood out for me as a captain.
I said at the beginning of the season, and I had an inkling, and I'm kind of going back on it now. I thought a natural leader, if he would have progressed this season, would have been Scott McTominay. I thought he had all the natural, ways, and he's growing up at the club. I thought if he would have progressed this season, he had a real good chance of getting it. But the last couple of games I've watched, I'm kind of going back on that now. It looked. Mm-hmm. It looked like he went missing against City for me. It looked like he was hiding behind players. Now, whether he's been, that's come from, like I said, the management, or whether he's done that on his own back or not. But at the beginning of the season, I honestly thought he was going to progress and he'd probably be our next club captain.
Yeah, a lot of ex players have also said that as well in interviews, like Roy Keane, Scholes. They've all said that he could be a next Man United captain. A few have also said Scotland captain. Well, to be honest, I'm Scottish, and our current captain plays for Liverpool, so I would take anybody right now. But then again, it's difference is Robertson actually leads a team really well. Like McTominay, he hasn't, and it's reflecting. But I don't know who's going to lead us, but we do need something.
That's the problem. You don't actually know who to give the armband to, do you? There's no natural standout player there who you'd say 100% deserves that armband. You know what I mean?
I'd put De Gea's name in the hat, man. Like,
longest
how many
serving player
times
makes
is he
sense.
what I always think, and maybe it's me just being old-fashioned, but I always feel like a goalkeeper, if you've got a big personality in your goals, they can see the whole game, and like you think about how many captains, the world-class goalkeepers or captains of their club, like it's not I get that you would want someone out there in the thick of things, like maybe in the center of the park, like a Roy Keane, but I think at the moment, De Gea's like leading by example, and I know that's like he shouldn't be, but you're seeing a bit of passion. Like I'm sure you've all seen him like sort of swing at the tunnel, like it went viral, and it's like at least he's showing a little bit of passion, man. At least it's actually hurting him. I think that's the biggest issue with this United team. I don't see any of them really hurt. It's like they're not. It's just well, we lost that game. On to the next one. I'm like, no, like it doesn't work like that against Liverpool and City. But
I replied to a tweet where it went viral. I replied to and I went, the only one who deserves to actually be angry and deserves to punch anything in Old Trafford is De Gea. I went, he's the only one that deserves it, because you actually see how he feels and it's reflective and it understands. This here right now, I think it's an absolute spot on comment. We will be moving on in a few minutes, but I think as a reflection, I'm going to get Stuart's point of view on this one. I don't know if you've seen it, but Michael Owen made some comments recently in front of Paul Scholes and Owen Hargreaves, and he spoke about United's system, and he contrasted it to Liverpool with Jurgen Klopp, and what he spoke about was when Jurgen Klopp came in, he knew how his team was going to play. He knew the certain players he had in his team, but what he did was he kept playing the players to actually iron out who actually suited them, and then he, quote unquote, weed them out. So touching on that, like, considering where we are as a team and performance, Stuart, what's your overall thoughts on the comments made by Michael Owen in terms of what he actually said about the team? What's your overall opinion on that?
I think it's a really interesting one, because one thing we've heard throughout Solskjaer's entire reign is that he doesn't have a style and he doesn't have a system, whereas if you look at Klopp or if you look at Guardiola, it doesn't matter who they're going to come up against, what team it's going to be, they're going to play in the same way and they're going to play the same system. And watching United, we do tend to change it up. I thought coming into this season, the 4-2-3-1 was our set formation, certainly until we signed an out-and-out holding midfielder. I felt like that was how we were going to play this season. But then we switched to the 3-5-2, coming up against Tottenham. It worked out. Played against City, it didn't work at all. I don't really think our team suits that, especially when you look at the talent we've got on the wings. Again, I don't think our centre-halves are that great either. It's a difficult one in the back three. I do rate them. I think they're good, but I think overall for a team, we look at a couple of injuries there. We're severely lacking in centre halves if we're going to be sticking with a three. So it is a bit difficult, because we do tend to play differently when we come up against the bigger teams. And I look back to the 1920 season in Project Restart, where we beat Chelsea and City home and away. And one of the main reasons for that is we played that 3-5-2. We played quite counter-attacking football, and it worked really well. And at the time, it looked fantastic. But you wanted Man United to be a bit more dominant in those games. You wanted them to control the ball and be the better side, especially if you want to go on and win the title. But then last season, we tried to play a little bit more possession-based. And I don't know how many times we drew 0-0 with the big teams. It just wasn't quite clicking. And then this season as well, it's just not gone right at all. So it is a little bit difficult. And I think in the past I've been fair to Ollie and said, he is bringing in his own players. He's trying to get the squad working the way it is now. But with the players we've brought in, I'd have thought we'd have a set way of playing and a set system, but it still doesn't seem like we know our best 11. And I think that's quite silly to say, almost, that we still don't know our best 11, given how long he's been in the job and what we're going to play. So I do think Michael Owen's comments were very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like your in-depth opinion there. In terms of where we are, in terms of position, the comments themselves actually try to figure out not only a system, but also a style. But the first team 11, you're right, it's chopped and changing up every week, and it's just consistency. But I think a lot of people are saying it's down to favouritism, but there's so many comments to describe United's team under Ole that it's just it's borderline laughable, like how bad it's got in terms of looking at it from like a fan perspective. Even from like rivals are taking the piss out of us by saying, "Oh, we already know McFred are going to play, so we're just going to wipe the floor with you." Like they just know it in their heads, like they know what's coming, and it's a painful
Players
thing
are
because
not accountable for a bad performance now, Reece. That's the problem at Man U.
That's true. It's if we're shit, it's always fault. But when we play great, it's them. It's never the manager.
That. I don't mean that. I mean what I mean by like they're not accountable. They can have 5 bad games in a row and they'll still play. Like Luke Shaw, Luke Shaw's my favourite player. Like, but he's been awful this season, and we've bought arguably one of the most attacking left backs in the world when he was at Porto. I watch a lot of Portuguese football, and Telles was a fantastic player. I actually thought he would displace Luke Shaw when he signed at Man United. There's probably a tweet on my Twitter to say it. He was fantastic at Porto, and all right, Luke Shaw's games went. I'm not saying he should start ahead of him, but the likes of him, Maguire, like Bailey was fantastic, and then he's out the team again, and not necessarily recently. I mean, like in Solskjaer's tenure, Bailey has come in and played really well, and then we haven't seen him for another month, and it's like there's certain players in that squad that it doesn't matter how bad they play, they're always going to play. So if you can't be accountable for at that level of football, and you're not worrying to think, bloody hell, I've had a couple of bad games, I need to put a performance in here, like, you know. And I think that's another thing with United where they're really struggling, but like the squad players, because they know no matter how bad like Shaw plays or Fred and McTominay play, like the likes of Van de Beek and Telles and Bailey, they know they're not going to get a chance anyway, because it's been consistent over the whole Ole tenure that he does have his. I feel like when you've not got that level of competitiveness in the squad, and you automatically know that certain players, no matter how bad they play, are always going to play. What sort of mindset must that give the other players to think, I can't even get a game here, and I can't believe what I'm watching? I mean, we've all played football at a half-decent level. I know Lee's played at top level, but I played a pretty good level of football, and I've stood on the sidelines thinking, how is he playing and I'm not? Like, what is he doing that I can't do? I'm coming on, making a difference, and then I'm in the cold again, and it's like you just can't do that at that level of football. And I feel like that's an issue at United as well. The favouritism has to stop. It really does.
I mean, imagine if you're Jesse Lingard. What is he thinking? I mean, obviously, Donny's not really been given a chance, but when Jesse has been given a chance, he's done well. You know what I mean? Last season at West Ham, one of the best players in the Premier League. He's come back when he's been given his chance. He's done really well. Still can't get a game. That's
the bit that worries me.
I'll be honest. I'll be on the phone to my agency and get me a move as soon as you can.
Have you ever been in that position, Lee? Like where you? Sorry, Reece, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on, mate.
No. By all means, like I said, this like question of sport. Except I'm not Jackie.
Have you ever been in that position, Lee, where you've probably been an understudy to a player that's a starter, and you're looking at it and thinking, what have I got to do to get a game here? Like I can't see why I'm not being given an opportunity. He's bringing 6 out of 10s consistently. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation before. I know like top level football at United, it's very difficult to break into that first team, but I don't know if you've sort of progressed and played a sort of lower standard of football than what you did when you were younger, and you've maybe been in that position, but you're obviously played a much higher, well, you've played at the elite of I played a half-decent level of football, like sort of county level, and I've been in that situation before, and it's like that favoritism, but like I get that at like that level of football, you're always going to have favorites. I coach myself. I do play certain players in games, you know, and you do have to try and get that balance right. But it's like I have been in the other side of the coin as well, where I'm on the touchline thinking, why can't I get a kick here? And it comes back to the Lingards, the Dons. They must be thinking that. They must do.
And now Sancho.
They're elite level players as well. These are not bad players. And there's a respect in football. Of course there is. And you always liken it to, well, someone's getting an opportunity and you wait for yours. But when that opportunity is being given and given and given under bad performances, I just don't know how that would feel at that level, because when you're that good and you're at the creme de la creme in the Premier League and you're a national player and you're looking at players putting in 5, 6 out of 10s every week and thinking, what have I generally got to do to get a game?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. To be honest, I was quite lucky going through, and without trying to sound too big-headed, I was never really sub. I always started. I probably count on on my hands the amount of times I started on a sub. But as something similar than that, I probably supposed to, when I was in the reserves, and I probably did 2 or 3 seasons in the reserves. I went on loan at Shrewsbury, come back, did really well at Shrewsbury. Got my first team squad number, and at that time the first team was struggling for a left back. They were struggling like mad, so naturally I thought, I played a couple of friendlies with the first team, pre-season friendlies, and behind closed doors matches and things like that, played really well. But what we used to find in the academy and in the reserves and 18s, 19s, that the lads who actually got brought in from either abroad or got bought for a fee from down London or wherever, they seem to get the opportunities more than what us guys, what we used to be classed as local lads. I mean, I'm from Wigan, which is 25-30 minutes from Manchester, but we're still classed as a local lad. We used to have a grievance with, we never seemed to get the opportunity. They always give the opportunity to the lads who they paid the money for, who they wanted to probably show what we bought and we want them to do well, where we was always left hanging. And it used to annoy us, because we used to, on the training field on a Friday before any match, we used to always have a game where it was the local lads, just what we used to call the out-of-towners, and we used to wipe the floor with them every single week. And I mean wipe the floor with them. But then you go, there'd be a league match coming up or an FA Cup match, and when you used to go to your changing room between the first team and the reserves at Carrington, they used to put the team sheets up there. So when there was a match coming up where you'd expect your name to be up there because you've had a good few weeks and this, that, and the other, you'd always find that it would a player who's not particularly done, right well in training or not done right well in, the matches, used to be there, and that used to wind us up. So that for me was frustrating over the years. Yeah.
I've had that same issue before. I mean, I've been dropped for poor performances. Like, I won't deny that. I've been dropped for poor performances, but the difference is the following week is I actually showed what I'm there for, and I actually got in. I stayed there. So like, the difference is if you put the work in, you're not going to get dropped. But if you're just half-arsed, then you're still in the team, which is like the one thing I don't like about right now about the team. And like, I'll come to the live comments in a minute because there's some fantastic comments yet again. Keep them coming, guys, including questions for Lee. I will put them up on the screen. I look at the likes of Fred McTominay, and like Fred's £50 million signing, McTominay is one of the youth academy, but right now they both are absolutely terrible to watch. They're terrible, and it's not just the fact that they're terrible to watch. It's the sense of they're not actually showing improvement, and people are going to say, it's straight down to coaching or straight down to the manager, and yeah, they are obviously their job is to make you better, and I understand that, but it's not just their job as well. It's the player themselves, and I don't actually see them actually working enough. Which, to say it in the nice way, I don't actually see them working enough to actually improve. I only see them sticking to what they know to like keep their place and be reserved and hoping it does the job. But that isn't always enough. Which is unfortunately quite painful. There's some brilliant comments. There's one for you though, Jamie, that's absolutely genius. It's saying you're still in denial. Your favourite player is Andy Carroll. Comment from Vicky, and I absolutely believe this is spot on. Sancho and Donny were thrown on a little too late. I mean, how can they prove anything with 10 minutes? Exactly. Some players need to grow into the game. 10 minutes is not enough for any player. Like, I can understand if you're like 4-5-0 up and it's like 10 minutes, just come on and have a runabout, get on the ball and just enjoy yourself. But when it's that situation where you need to impact the game tremendously, 10 minutes is not enough. Like, it is not enough, and it's a shame. And Trevor's backing up by saying Donny, a Champions League and international football pedigree player of the highest order, and is being treated like he's a youth player. Sadly, that's the case. And Sancho doesn't go from having the most assists and goals outside the Premier League over 2 seasons to no assists and no goals. That's the system. Yep, agreed. And
I think you just need to look at the international players at Man U that are not in their international teams anymore. I think that says it all, really. Like,
Yeah,
Donny's not
absolutely.
in Holland, is he? Greenwood. I know there's injuries for Pogba and the likes of that, but there's players, there's world-class young players. Sancho and Greenwood can't even get in the England team. Like,
Yeah, Van Gaal's came out and said, if you're not picked for your team, I'm not. It doesn't matter if you've played in the team like consistently. If you're not playing for your club, you're not getting picked. And Van Gaal said that since day one, since he came back to the job. So, if anything, I know Donny isn't going to like it, but Van Gaal's the manager for Holland. You can't exactly argue with that. If you're not playing, he ain't picking you, and it's a shame because he hasn't getting the time. When as a midfielder, he's good enough. He's just not been able to showcase it enough, which Lee's already said earlier on. He's right. He hasn't been given more chances to showcase his ability. And whether you like players or you dislike players, like by all means have your opinion. But if a player doesn't get enough time, and you see it on their face as well, like we all saw the incident when Donny van de Beek threw his chewing gum. I know a lot of people were annoyed about it, but for me, I was actually clapping him. I actually clapped Van de Beek when he threw his chewing gum. I was like, I know it's disgusting. It's a disgusting thing to do, but I'm like, it just shows how pissed off he is. Like, he wants to get on the field.
At the beginning, I said to Keane, the only logical explanation I can think of why Donny's not getting a start, and it's got to be something on the training ground. They've got to be seeing something there what they don't like, because it's not down to his performances, because they're not giving him the chance to even perform. So how
I've got the same opinion as you. I said that to Keane once as well. As I think it must be on the field. It must. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's. It can't be attitude.
I think Phil Brown summed it up, didn't he, Reece, the other night when we had Phil Brown on, who's an absolutely fantastic podcast. I could listen to him all day. And I think he was saying there was some sort of issue with the coaches, wasn't too sure on him positionally. But he come through the best academy in the world.
Do you know what I mean? The videos I watched of him, Jamie, looking, I mean, I didn't know much about him really before he come to United, so I watched a few videos of him at Ajax, and he was an attacking midfield player, creating chances, scoring chances. He looked right well. I think what they're trying to do is shoehorn him in his position, what is not his natural position, which is a defensive midfield player. So, if they're trying to mould him into that, and that's not the player he is, then he's not going to look as, he's not going to be as comfortable or look as good as he should do, because he's not playing his natural position.
They've done it before, though, Lee, haven't they? They've done it with Anderson. They tried to make Anderson a defensive midfielder. Anderson was an attacking midfielder at Porto. I watched him for 3 years at Porto, and he was one of the most exciting players in Europe. And then he comes to Man United, and I'm not digging out Ferguson at all. Of course I'm not. But he tried to change his role and make him a more of a passing, sort of deeper playmaker. And it just didn't fit. And look at how his career went. United have done that with a few players in over the years, where they've tried to change their game. And it's the same with Sancho now. People are making jokes that he's going to be a right wing back because, you know what I mean? But you buy these players for that amount of money because they're a specialist in that role. And then you bring them to the club and try and change them from the role why you bought them. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
they're trying to put a formation in, aren't they? Where they're just trying to shoehorn players because of the names and because of how much money they put them in. And play a formation what suits everybody. Put your best team out there and see how it goes.
I think I've always been the limelight as like I'm just gonna quickly read Trevor's comment, and I'll have what I think of it is like he says Manchester's our best CDM, even though he has no legs anymore. Yep, Keane said the exact same thing, and Donny will never displace Bruno. That's true. I always look at it and I think you can have the best players in the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've got the best team. If you've got a team you can build, then fricking use it. Like you can have like the best team and then have like you can have like a brilliant team and then have like one amazing talent in your team like Ronaldo or Bruno. Necessarily you want both because they're so effective, and then build a team around that. But instead you're just shoehorning players in, like we've said, like it's just shoehorning. It says all that we're about to move on to the defence, but we've got so many issues everywhere. But like our defensive issues as well. Like we were looking at shoehorning players. Like we brought Varane. He's now had 2 injuries because he was brought back too quickly. Wan-Bissaka's all over the place. Maguire's seeing stars and not the ones you would usually want to see. Bailly's inconsistent. Lindelof gets bullied, even though he's a good player with the ball. Luke Shaw's over the place. Telles doesn't get a game. And we're just looking at De Gea going, mate, you should just play every position and we'll just call you David the Machine. Like, looking at our defence, do you think I think the back three, like I know Struan said earlier on, like the back three, like we need more centre backs for that system. But I look in and think, when I look at that defensive situation, I don't think our back four is actually good enough to play as a back four system because we don't have enough leaders in there. I think we have no other option but to play a back three. But you can use one as a makeshift, like Luke Shaw. So I'm just going to ask your opinion. Like I'll come to Struan first on this one, but as overall our defensive issues, do you see any way that our defence could actually shape up? Because we already know United and clean sheets don't exist. Like we've had 2 this season. Like United and clean sheets, like Superman had Kryptonite, Batman had the Joker. We've got clean sheets. That's our weakness as well. Like per defence. Like what's your opinion on defence, and where do you think United can go to at least try and improve it from what we've got at the moment?
I think Aston Villa have had a clean sheet at Old Trafford more recently than we have, but it's been tough. To be brutally honest, coming into this season, I thought our back four looked really solid. Bringing in Varane, Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire just had a fantastic Euros. I thought Wan-Bissaka as well. I thought that back four potentially with people like Lindelof coming in and out of it as well, it looked really good, but it's just not been at the same this season, and we're back to relying on De Gea, and that's something that I didn't really want. I don't know if there's an argument that we just need more leaders in there, we need more people speaking up, because I think Lindelof is the person who actually leads the line. I think he's the one who organises the defence when you think it'd probably be Maguire being the captain, and having him injured and also kind of kicked out the team with Varane coming in, you potentially lose somebody who's actually going to lead that line, and I don't know if anybody's stepped up in that sense. We know De Gea's a fantastic shot stopper, but I think he's been criticised a few times as well for not being a very vocal keeper. I mean, I don't have any complaints. I think he's fantastic, but I don't think we have anybody in that defence when Lindelof comes out who's actually going to command it. If you look at that goal we conceded against Man City, where the second one, the ball comes over the top, how is nobody given Shaw a shout to kick it out or De Gea to run for it? It basically just goes over the top and nobody seems to react. I'm not sure what's going on at the back there. I do think a holding midfielder, though, is still a massive issue. I think it makes a massive difference to a team. If you look at Man City in the Champions League final, they didn't play one against Chelsea, and their defence, who rightly so had so much praise, kind of looked exposed a little bit. And I think that's just the difference that it can make. We look at Liverpool as well when Fabinho was injured or when he has to play in the defence. It's a totally different scenario there. So I do think we are lacking a holding midfielder there, but likewise, the defence just isn't shaping up. I know over the summer we really wanted a right back. I think Trippier was the one who was probably the most talked about, but we spent a lot of money on Wan-Bissaka. Surely we can get more out of him. Surely we can get more out of this defence. As Jamie was saying there, Alex Telles, before he came to United, I thought he was going to walk into the team as well. I thought his attacking output, I think only Sergio Ramos scored more goals from defence than him before he signed, and Ramos was on penalties. So, he has a great output to him, and I thought that would come in, but we just don't seem to be clicking as a defensive unit. We just don't seem to be able to work it out properly. When Varane has come in, though, you can see he is a class above. Our first clean sheet against Wolves, he was part of that. Probably shouldn't have kept a clean sheet, to be honest, in that game, but I thought he was excellent. And you can see when he's come in how good a defender he really is. And I think as soon as he got injured against Atalanta after coming back from an injury, you just sort of think, where do we go from here? How does this defence improve? Because even when Harry Maguire is injured, he was still forced back into the game against Leicester when reports have come out recently saying that he wasn't fit for that. Whereas Eric Bailly signed a new contract in the summer, isn't getting a start there. And I think as well, we were just to say this a few minutes ago, talking about players not getting minutes. I think Daniel James still has more league minutes for United than Bailly, Telles, Lingard and Van de Beek so far. Which
all combined, 126 minutes more combined, something like that.
It's ridiculous. I just don't think we know our best back four at the moment, which is a little bit ridiculous. But at the same time, we don't seem to be changing it up too much. Yeah,
I agree. Before I come on to get your opinions, Jamie and Lee, I just want to ask you a question on the back of this one, Struan. I love this guy. I absolutely adore Ethan Laird. What's your opinion on it? Should we be looking at bringing him back in as a right back next season? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm really excited by Ethan Laird, to be honest. I remember seeing a report a few years ago that from that sort of class of United players in that age group, in the same that included Mason Greenwood, a lot of people said that Laird had the most potential. And, he suffered a few injuries as well at United. He had a decent spell at MK Dons under Russell Martin. He's back again with him at Swansea, and he looks really good. And for a while, when the Antonio Conte links were happening, one of the first things I was thinking was, I don't think Wan-Bissaka is good enough as a wing-back role. We should look to Ethan Laird bringing him back. And over the summer as well, when we were talking about bringing somebody in, I thought we already have Dallo and we've got Laird there. It's a tough one to say. I'd happily give Ethan Laird a chance. I don't think Wan-Bissaka has been great at all this season, and even defensively, I think his attacking output has always been what's questioned. But this season, even his defensive work just hasn't quite been to the standards we know about. So I'd happily see Ethan Laird have a chance at United, to be honest. I don't think he'll be recalled from a loan. I think it'll be next season at the earliest, but it would definitely be worthwhile to give him a chance, because he can't do any worse than the current defence at the moment in that fullback on the right-hand side.
Well, I can safely say that you are now staying in mine, Keane and Shane Dowley's good books, because we all absolutely adore Ethan Laird, so you're stuck in our good books for the rest of the time, just saying, unless you end up saying something absolutely horrible, and then I have to...
I think one other story that was quite funny is him and Brandon Williams came through the academy at the same time, and Williams had to become a left-back despite being right-footed, because Ethan Laird was basically taking that position. So I think he is a really promising player.
If it hadn't been for injuries, in my opinion, Laird would have been promoted first. Because all due respect to Brandon, he is a decent player. I'm not taking it away from him, but I look at Laird, and I honestly believe Ethan Laird is better than him technically, like going forward and at the back as well. I think he is better. But then again, if it hadn't been for his injury issues, which were in the academy consistent, like they were constantly occurring, if that hadn't happened, he would have got promoted. But since he's been at Swansea or even at MK Dons, I don't think he has been injured to an extent. I think he's actually been in better shape. I think it's just because he's getting regular minutes at a higher level. He's able to adapt to the game better. I think that's a fault in it. Lee, I just want to ask, on United's defence, whether it be a back four or a back three, like, what's your opinion on United's defence, and where do you think, like, even like players in those positions, like what do you think is our best fitted defence? Like, do you think there has to be certain players that has to come out and certain players have to go in? Do you think we have to look at like more signings, which seems to be the common theme? Like, what's your point of view? I know we spoke about communication earlier on, and I do fundamentally agree with you. Communication is lacking. You can see it, and it's clear as day. Even yourself as a left back in a centre-back's position, a centre-back's playing in a midfield position when he shouldn't even be there in the first place. What's your overall thoughts on that? Do you think clear changes have to be made in there, or do you think it's simply just they need to be reminded of what their job is? Like, what's your...
I think there's many issues with the defence. I think there's like I say, I think there's a hell of a lot of issues. I think, like I say, we've mentioned the communication work doesn't look it's zero. To me, I don't think that's getting coached well enough. But just fundamentals of defending. I mean, I've said it all season, and it was absolutely so 100% noticeable on against City. Every time lads got the ball on the wings, or the fullbacks, instead of sprinting out and getting to them and stopping that crossing going in, or not letting them get the head up, you know what I mean? We just jog out to them. We just jog out, look pretty, let them cross the ball, and that's where our problems are coming in. That's where we're conceding goals. They don't look like they want the hustle and bustle of it. They just don't look like they know how to defend. They don't. For me, the fundamentals of defending are getting up close, nice, tight, stopping crosses. It doesn't look like we're doing none of that. We look lazy, especially at the fullback roles at the minute. We look massively lazy for me. I just think it probably... I mean, the elite level footballers, it shouldn't really need coaching. That should have been coached from a young age, and that should be in their head. Whether, it needs to be... They need to be told again about it, or they might be the jobs. I don't know. I don't know if it's a coaching thing or what. I couldn't tell you our best back four at the minute. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. Or back three. I don't know what I'd do with them, because, like I said, there's not really one who's been an outstanding player who stood out more than the others. I think Lindelof was unlucky to lose his place when Varane come in. I thought Lindelof was probably a little bit more stronger than Harry Maguire at the time. But again, favouritism has kept Maguire in my opinion.
I believe he's better technically than Maguire. I know a lot of people are going to go for the bias and all that, but it's for me, it's not. It's pure. I look at compliment of a player, like that sort of relationship. Like when you can tell a partnership. Like Ronnie Johnson wasn't the best centre back in the world in 1998. Jaap Stam was, but they had such a perfect connection together. Vidic and Ferdinand was perfection, or even Pallister and Bruce in the early 90s. Like it says it all, really, the communication there. And I think, touching what you're saying, I don't see there's any partnership. I think the only one that could work is Lindelof and Varane, but I don't know. Like you said, I couldn't even tell our best back four either.
The only thing I could see, and I mentioned about shoehorning, and it is slightly shoehorning, but it's only an idea what I would personally have. Wan-Bissaka is obviously, we all know his strength isn't going forward whatsoever. We know it can be an unbelievable defender one-on-one. Is there an argument for putting him in a back three, or maybe dropping Luke Shaw in a back three again? When I mentioned about watching videos on Telles, I didn't see much of Telles before he come to United. So again, I watched a few YouTube videos of him and put his stats up. It was an unbelievable, attacking left back or left wing back. Is there an argument there to, put them back into a back three, get a player who's got a bit of pace about him? Because if you've got Varane, Maguire and Lindelof, or, there's not much pace there in that back three. Is there a possibility where you look at putting them in with Bailly and Lindelof, or whichever two defenders you're going, put a bit of pace in there and get someone who's a bit more attack minded down on the wing back positions? That could be an option. Yeah,
I'll get Jamie to come on that in a second, but I actually mentioned this to Keane previously. Is like, I wouldn't mind Wan-Bissaka coming in because his recovery pace is recovery pace as well is fantastic. It's just who you play on the right hand side.
I think we've only got Dalot at the moment, haven't we? And you don't like we mentioned earlier, you don't want to be buying Jadon Sancho as a player who's going to create all these chances and this, that, and the other, and then put him back into a right wing back. That's not what you do with a player. You've just 70-80 million pound player, is it? You've just signed. Exactly.
I think you need to put defensive players in that position and actually get them in the roles that fits them comfortably. I think a back three suits us better than a back four. I think Wan-Bissaka plays more like a wing back than he does a full back, and it was evident in the Spurs game where he was more of a threat in that sense. But I think if you play him as a right centre back, I wouldn't be against that. I think it would work really well. Even Luke Shaw, he was comfortable in that position. There's some quality comments. I'm going to get your opinion on one question in a minute, Jamie, because there is one that stands out. But a comment here by Vicky is Varane is a massive impact, massive in the French locker. Gutted he's injured. You and me both. He is absolutely world class. He's phenomenal. There is one comment here by Trevor that I'm going to put towards yourself, Jamie. Your point of view. Axel Tuanzebe had a stormer against PSG a few years back against the best forward line in Europe. At the time, it was barely ever seen again. Favoritism is rife at United. I know Tuanzebe hasn't exactly lived it up at United, but he has had decent performances. Do you think with Varane in there, maybe we should look at, say, I would love it if I know I'm going to quote Kevin Keegan, but I don't care. I absolutely adore Teddy Mengi. I think he is like the future down the line. But if you had to look at right now, would you put Tuanzebe in that position? I know he's out on loan at the moment, but figuratively speaking, Jamie, would you go with that, or would you rather stick, say, Mengi in there? Obviously, you can't just put somebody in there for the sake of it. It has to be clear cut. But what's your point of view on the back four or back three?
I do rate Mengi as well. I think he's going to be a fantastic centre back. Whether it's at Man United, I don't know, because it comes down to, is he going to really get a chance? There's been some really decent players leaving, like the likes of Chelsea, to go and play for sort of lower league Premier League teams, like Dahori, I think his name is how you pronounce it. He's gone to Crystal Palace. Everybody's raving about how good he's going to be, and you're always going to get that. But for me, you've got to have different types of players to play certain positions. You can't have the same type of free centre backs. If you look at the top clubs around Europe that play free at the back, they have two solid centre backs and they have one centre back that's willing to carry the ball and take it into the midfield. And that's when your shape changes when you're in possession. And United do have the ability to be able to do that, but they just don't do it. It's like, if you're going to have a rigid back three or back five, you need to set your stall out and have a style of play as to what you're trying to implement from the first kick of the game. Are you going to be defensively very strong, and you're going to have a really tight line, a very narrow defense out of possession? But when you're in possession, you know your positions. I just don't feel like, I'm not even going to point it towards the coaching aspect. I think some of it does have to come into individuality sometimes. And it's like, you need to understand your game plan from the first whistle, and you have to have an in and out. And Leo know this from playing the level he has. You're always going to have a formation based off of out of possession and in possession. And if I can do it, Reece, and I don't mean to. I know about my coaching quite a lot on here, and the people that do know that have listened to me before will
by
know
all
that
means
I do
bring
coach.
it.
But my team are under 12s, mate, and they have an in and out of possession. So if I can do it, it doesn't always work at that level. Don't get me wrong. There's holes everywhere sometimes, but it's that we're trying to get into good habits as a team. And I just don't see that with United. They don't have enough variation in what they're trying to achieve. And when you're going into the market, everybody just says, like, right, we'll buy this and we'll go out and we'll buy Trippier because he's not attack-minded. And you've got to go into the market with an ideology of a player fitting a system. Like if you look at Jurgen Klopp, he's not going to go into the market for a defensive-minded left back because his formation doesn't dictate that that's what he wants his left back to be able to do. I feel like United just go and buy a player without actually realizing whether they're going to fit in the system. And do you know how? Because we don't have a system. And I'm not one for just labeling. You know, Reece, I've spoke to you for a long time on these sort of things, mate. I don't just say things to be controversial. I don't think we have a system, and we've got a back four that's made up of individuals. For me, if I was the Man United manager, Luke Shaw is the one that can break the lines. So I would keep Wan-Bissaka. Lee just mentioned it a minute ago. He's solid defensively. He's very good defensively. So out of possession, bring him in and have him more make a three. So if Luke Shaw does go, we've got that cover in the back, and that's when you need the versatility from the midfield players, which we don't have at the moment. But Luke Shaw would be my out ball, so to speak. And he would be the one going into that next phase of the next line on the pitch. And then you obviously, if Fred needed to drop into a centre-back position while he went, that would automatically be his role. But I would explain that to him. But and this is where I do have to question the coaching, because if I can sit and break down a formation, why can't these elite level coaches that are on hundreds of thousands of pounds to do it on the touchline, why can't they do it? And I don't have all the answers. All I do have is understand how I like to play football and break down a formation. And it comes back to the very basics of, you have to have a plan and then put the plan in place. And I just feel like within the 3 seasons, and this isn't digging Ole out, everybody knows my stance on Ole. I don't think he's good enough to be the manager. It's as simple as that. But I'm not going to sit here and dig him out. I feel like he doesn't have a plan to go into the market and buy the players that fit the plans. And Man United are just obsessed with buying massive players. But the reality of it is, we've bought in... Sorry, I know I'm going on a bit here, lads. Sorry.
Continue. By all means, continue, because you're about to come into my next point, which is spot
on. Ahmad, we've bought in like Sancho, Greenwood to a certain extent, so winger. We've got Rashford, and the reality of it is, we've went in with this plan that we've had to go and buy youth players and bring youth players in, but they're all wingers. And if we change the system now and we do stick with Ole and we do go with a 5, where's Ahmad breaking in? Where's Palestri coming into that team? He's not a fullback. Do you know what I mean? So it's bad preparation over the last 3 years that has got us into this position. And I'm not saying we've bought bad players, but if you're not going to play wingers, don't buy Ahmad. Do you know what I mean?
You're right, and this is where we're going to move on.
Sorry,
because
I ranted on a little bit.
By all means, I actually appreciate that, because you brought up some points that actually lead to my next topic about Solskjaer and Solskjaer's future. Because we've all seen in the media, like, it's constant. The media are like vultures. We all know that, but they have referred to a man who actually wanted the job 2 years ago. A man whom Ralph Rangnick, who I absolutely adore, the professor of football. I absolutely adore German football. I get rinsed for it by Keane, because obviously Keane doesn't like the Bundesliga and all that. But I absolutely adore German football. I adore German managers, and I adore people with a vision that they actually recognised long before anybody else. Ralf Rangnick recognised in 1987 that German football had to abandon the sweeper. He said that 3 years before they actually abandoned the sweeper, but the Germans were like, well, we've won the World Cup with a sweeper. We play exciting football with a sweeper. But then he went, well, actually, the system's going to be outdated very soon. You need to go flat back four. And eventually they did. So he sees things before it happens. And he made some fantastic comments about what a coach is. And I absolutely love this guy. I could talk about this guy all day, but I don't want to get too much into it. But he has been rumoured to take the United job again on the back of Solskjaer's current situation, where it's going. Is he going to be in the job? Whether you want him in or out, I still think he's going to be in the job for quite a while. But if we are going to bring someone in, even for an interim period, he would be my choice. I don't know about you guys, but in the grounds of why I'm mentioning Rangnick in comparison to Jamie's points is because in this coaching video, he spoke about three things. He spoke about concept, which is clear as day what his team sets out to be. Coaching, about what a coach is supposed to do. It's about ensuring a team has a fundamental style of play. And he spoke about when it becomes like immediate in your head, like a motor neuron reaction where it's embedded in your brain, where you could be absolutely exhausted, or you get told like you have to go and coach a session like an hour down the line. This is how we're going to play, and it's fundamental and it sticks with you. And I look at that and I'm thinking that's the difference. Where a 63-year-old man who builds clubs, builds sports networks, he loves to coach young players. He has a specific style of play that Klopp, Hasenhüttl, Nagelsmann, Tuchel have all credited him for, purely because he recognised what a team can do, and he's all about building a club and a vision of good football that is sustainable and it's exciting, but leads to success. And I look at what you've also said there about fundamentals, and his pressing system is fundamental. And I look at, for example, where you talk about a style of play or coaching, he specifically said it's how this goes. This is how he wants his teams to play at all age groups, where they will all play the same. If you look at our academy team right now, our academy team plays totally different to the first team. It's totally different. It's not like where we play more counter press or like counter pressing style at first. Like the first team football in the academy, it's not. It's more dominating the ball. It's just unfortunately right now we're not getting good results. It's in that respect. And just to answer Talk MUFC's comment, yes, Ralf Rangnick did invent the gegenpress. He did invent that. Billy's comment, my only fear of Rangnick is it sounds very much like Van Gaal's philosophy approach, and that did not turn out well.
There's nothing like Van Gaal.
He's totally different. He's totally different to Van Gaal. Like, he does have a philosophy, but the difference is his approach to the game. It's clear at all levels, whereas Van Gaal was only focused on one, the first team. Rangnick builds it from the ground up, and he will look at. I think if you get him in for an interim period, you'll actually see the difference between him and say a Van Gaal. But I'm gonna get your overall opinions on this. I'm gonna come to Lee first. We've not heard Lee speak in a wee while longer, but looking at Solskjaer's future, obviously, former Man United, you're a former Man United player. You're a fan, but just from a fan's perspective, what's your thoughts on Solskjaer's future? And I'm not gonna ask you if you're all in or all out, because frankly, I don't see the point in that conversation because it gets too toxic from what I see. But based on the managerial situation, looking in, like, what's your thoughts on that? And do you think United may have to pull the plug and bring someone else in and see if a fresh approach is important?
Yeah. I think it's inevitable now. To be honest, I've always been a supporter of Ole. I think obviously I played with Ole and I knew Ole from way back when. So obviously, like most of the players, you try and defend the guys who you've played with, and you see it now with Gary Neville's and different players. But how long can you defend them? I think Mio's come out this week and said, you've done a great job, but passed the baton. I think that's how everyone's feeling now. I feel like he's tried to steady the ship as such. He's brought some big names in. He probably has took them as far as he can take them. And let's get a big boy in who can get the club to the next level. You know what I mean? It's needed. Like I say, we don't know, like James said, we don't know our best 11. We don't know what formation we're playing. We're not sure whether we're coming or going at the moment. I do feel like we need someone who can come in and steady the ship, get us the way I look at it is when I was playing, we played with more or less a steady 11 every week. With maybe one or two changes even there. And that helped because you knew if you was on the ball and you needed someone to be in midfield, you knew that that player was going to be there. I always knew that if I was playing with Paul McShane at the side of me, I knew he'd be tucking around me if I lost the ball, vice versa. You get to know, patterns of play. When you're playing with people who, you're playing with such a body 1 week, such a body the week after, a different formation here. 1 week you're playing, you're defending the post from a goal kick, then you're man marking, then you're zonal marking. It just messes with your head. It's not, for me, it's no good for anybody. You need something installed in the system where what you're doing every minute on that pitch instead of guessing week in week out where you're supposed to go. So yeah, for me, you need to get a manager in who's got a certain style of play, who'll stick by it and figure out what his best 11 is and keep that going. So yeah, for me, I think Ole's done a good job while he's been in there, but I think it's about time now that he lets someone take it.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, I've got all the respect in the world, but I do think he's taken us as far as we can go. There is a few names mentioned in the live chat that I do agree with are great mentions. I look at where we are, and I would like, at the moment, because he's not available, I would like Rangnick, for example, just an interim period where at least he would get them playing a style of football that's exciting to watch, but it's also going to be reflective. And then we'll move on. For me, long-term period, I would honestly enjoy this guy. I would love it if we got Ten Hag from Ajax.
I was literally just going to say. I think majority of people want that interim period with Ralph, and then they want Ten Hag after that. I think that's the consensus I'm seeing of the majority of fans, to be honest.
I think it's the best approach because they have similar styles of football. The only difference is like Ten Hag's is more possession based, but they both share the same vision of of pressing football, and it's quick recoveries of the ball and then quick attacks on teams, but it's controlling the ball, and that's what they've always been about. So I think you're not really changing much from a Rangnick style to a Ten Hag style. The only thing you're changing is you're telling them you just need to be better with possession of the ball. There is an alternative option which has been asked by Billy. This is his opinion, but he's just asking. He's saying Brendan Rodgers is the best option, but could we take an ex-Liverpool manager? All I'm going to say is I know a lot of people, based on the comment, well, Sir Matt Busby played for Liverpool and he played for Man City, so why not get Brendan Rodgers? It makes sense. There was a time and a place where the derby wasn't as much, but now it's more significant. But I don't think it's a bad choice. I would just much prefer Ten Hag. Just overall, your overall consensus, like either of you lads, I'll open up the question to the three of you. Who would you honestly prefer? Would you want Brendan Rodgers, who right now has experience in the Premier League? He has won trophies, but he does have some factors where his teams do fade away at the end of the season. It could just be the fact they don't have the fact because there's lesser squads, like the injuries creep up on them, which affect their play. Or do you want Ten Hag, who is doing it at Ajax, where he's had to build two teams, losing his best players, but he's done it in the international stage with his clubs in Europe, where he's showcasing that he can keep his team playing the same style of football even when they lose their best players? Who would you undefinitely go on that perspective? Would you rather go Ten Hag or would you rather go Brendan Rodgers, or an alternative option in your own opinion? Just one open up to the three of you.
Stuart, go for it.
I'm not too sure on this one. I've not seen too much of Ten Hag's Ajax, to be honest. I've watched them a lot in the Champions League, but I don't really know the ins and outs. Obviously, he's done absolutely fantastic in the Eredivisie. Probably, last season he won the title. The year before, probably would have without COVID, and then the year before that they won the title. And he's done a fantastic job of replacing talents. De Ligt's gone out, in comes Timber. He's been fantastic. Ziyech has gone out, Anthony's come in. Donny van de Beek's gone out, Gravenberch has come in, De Jong, etc. It doesn't seem to end. I have seen quite a lot of Brendan Rodgers. Obviously, spent a lot of time in Celtic here in Scotland, and I do think Rodgers is a really good manager. As an ex-Liverpool manager, there is definitely going to be that to it. But we've seen Benitez at Everton this season. I don't think there is that loyalty. Conte going to Spurs. We took Mourinho as well, ex-Chelsea. I don't think the manager loyalty is always there in the modern game. But I think Rodgers is a really good manager. I think he's done fantastically well at Leicester. I think statistically as well, he's the best manager in their history in terms of win percentage. Obviously, won them the FA Cup, the Community Shield. Fair enough, the Community Shield's not exactly the most glorious trophy, but you have to win something to get to the Community Shield, and he beat City there. So I think he's done a really good job. And similar to Ten Hag in the Ajax system, at Leicester, he has lost a lot of his best players and replaced them. Obviously we took Maguire and in came Fofana. Chilwell came out. He brought James Justin through. He's done that well there. And it was the same at Celtic.
Yep.
A lot of the big players were taken away and he did really well to replace them there. I think he's a
agree,
really good manager. He's kind of got like almost a really good range of experience as well, Rodgers. He's been the assistant at Chelsea coming through, managing in the Championship with Swansea promotion, then Swansea in the Premiership, taking over a massive club like Liverpool, then going to Scotland in Celtic, which, fair enough, Celtic were the favourites to win the title, but that's a lot of pressure. In his first season, he was invincible and he won all the domestic trophies. And he's gone to Leicester and 2 back-to-back fifth-place finishes. I mean, fair enough, there was a top 4 bottle. Well, it's not really fair to say bottle when you think the other teams around them, the injuries Leicester's had. So I wouldn't be opposed to Brendan Rodgers at all, to be honest. I know he's not won the highest of highs that we want at Manchester United. He has managed Liverpool. There's a lot of negatives there. But I do think he would be a good option, especially as well who's available.
I'm going to throw another name out as we come to Liam. I'm going to throw another name out. There was one actually recommended, funnily enough, by Pep Guardiola. He thinks he is the perfect replacement for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and that's Luis Enrique, even though he is currently the Spain manager. On the back of Rodgers, Ten Hag, or even Enrique, would that be your choice? I know, Jamie, you've got your own name, and I'm going to come to you last on this one, but would Ten Hag be the one for you, Lee, or is there anybody else that's caught your eye? Do you agree with the Rodgers point of view, even though he's ex-Liverpool?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, to be honest with you, mate. We discussed Brendan Rodgers straight after the Leicester defeat, what we had. We all was in agreement of, for me, he's a great manager. He's a good man manager. He does well with his players. He's done well wherever he's been. What he does with Leicester, obviously, under Wenger, we know they won the league, but he's done really well in there. I would definitely not be opposed to him being our next manager. I suppose it's what you want, really. It's what you're getting with Rodgers. He's in the Premier League. He's established. We've seen what he's done. Ten Hag's a little bit of a bit different for us. He's a foreign manager at Ajax, a couple of leagues over there, what he's won, but you don't know as much as what you're getting with him, and it's a bit of an unknown quantity for probably a lot of Man United fans out there. So I think it just depends if you want the reliability of knowing what you know, or you want to bring something new and exciting and hope it works out. I'm not opposed to either or, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not opposed to either or. I do like Brendan Rodgers, though. I know there's obviously the Liverpool thing and what have you, but again, I do like him as a manager. And I wouldn't be disappointed if he got the job.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I'm going to get your opinion just now, Jamie. But I'm just going to read a few comments out. Some fantastic comments, obviously. Vicky's here saying, Billy, I don't like the sound of it, not the United way, but the way United play right now. Billy's saying, Ten Hag is an amazing setup at Ajax. The whole club setup, ours look like Hyde United. No offence to Hyde. Wow. What is the United way right now, Vicky? And I think this is the perfect response. What is the United way right now? Play individually and talk about history. That is like the perfect example right now of what the United way is, because the United way used to be good football, expressive, show yourself on the pitch, but also you win. Whether you play, quote unquote, excuse my language, King, whether you play shite or whether you play absolutely fantastic, you saw it and it was consistent. Now it's not showing. So I think right now that is the most, pretty much the spot on method right now. Another comment is, I love this game. Interesting read on how Fergie changes over. You have a point. One thing we can only keep going as players play better in Europe just to show face, especially because certain players do not want to play in the Europa League. And before I come to Jamie's comment, just getting this one from Trevor. If Ten Hag comes in, most of our squad will be gone, as we are not great at pass and move. You cannot improve Fred, McTominay, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, he's literally called an ass, and Lindelof, etc. Yeah, I suppose. I think Lindelof would thrive though, because Lindelof with the ball, he's a very good passer of the ball. I think he would be fine, to be honest. But there are some players who generally would struggle. You're not wrong, but I do agree. On the back of that, managers named, Ole getting elite coaches but still being the job, which would annoy some fans. But to be fair, I love chaos. But Jamie, if you had to look at the United situation right now, what do you think United need to do in terms of get a new manager? And who do you think, if United were to get somebody in, what do you think United should do from your opinion as a fan?
I feel like I see someone put in there. Billy put that not Enrique. Luis Enrique was a fantastic player for a start, and if you watch Spain,
coach.
they play some fantastic football. Like so, it matters what you're looking for, but just to rule him out when he's playing,
he's in my top. He's in like my top 5 for options. Like that's how good he is.
I feel like there's like an arrogance at Man United that it has to be a certain type of manager that plays the quote unquote United way. Or do you know what? Do you want me to be honest? The United way doesn't exist no more. Like that's gone now, and I also think that we're in a time warp to think that we need a manager for the next 10 years. It doesn't exist. Like, them managers are not around anymore. You don't get a Ferguson or a Wenger anymore. They're there for 3-4 years maximum and they're away. Like, if you're lucky and you've got a Pep Guardiola or something that does want to stay around a bit longer, then great. But I feel like a lot's been mentioned. I take Struan's points about Brendan Rodgers. I'm quite a key. I'm not a Celtic fan, but I'm definitely
not a Celtic fan.
I know you're not. But I have quite a soft spot for Celtic, and the football under Brendan Rodgers was fantastic. Forget the level of football. The actual football itself was some of the best football I've ever seen at Celtic.
Funnily enough, he made Scott Sinclair a good player. Like that, I'll give him that. He actually made Scott Sinclair turn into a good player, which took him 15 years too late.
But if you're bringing Rodgers in, he's going to play a very possessional-based style of play, and he's going to press high. He's going to bring through young players. The Rangnick thing is very interesting. If it was up to me, and I know you're keen on this as well, Reece, he would be my pick, because I feel like he comes in, he freshens everything up, he gets a belief into the players and a different way of thinking. And for an interim, but I heard the rumor, and it's just going off of social media, I haven't heard it from anybody concrete, that he would want a role, a director of football role.
I'd give him it.
The thing is, I mean, well, so would I, but that's like to bring a football man in and put him in a role to go and recruit the players for the head coach, as it's now called. That's the way I would do it. But do you know why it won't happen? Because it makes too much sense. Like, and that's the biggest issue with Man U. It has to be someone that's going to be on strings, and he ain't going to be on strings. He's like he's a football godfather. Do you know what I mean? And like, if you brought in a Ten Hag and had him upstairs, God, like how exciting would that be? But for me, I'm quite leaning towards. I don't have an issue with Brendan Rodgers. The whole Liverpool thing doesn't mean nothing to me. Like,
he's not my top choice. I'm not necessarily against him. It's just I would rather somebody else. But I'm not entirely against him.
Yeah, well, I feel like he's a massive step up on Ole. Let's be honest. Like, and he probably does fall at the final hurdle a couple of times, but he hasn't had the team like we've got. So it's all well and good falling at a hurdle with Leicester.
That's a good point.
But you can't say he can't deal with the pressure. I know his Liverpool team collapsed in the end, but like you don't go to Celtic and not have any pressure on you. Don't think because they're in the SPL there's no pressure. Like, the Celtic and Rangers job's one of the most pressurized jobs in football. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, let's be real here. And I feel like if we're going to go down any route, I think United need a change of plan, and they need a change of plan in a lot of ways. So I feel like if it was up to me, I would, if we can get Ten Hag, and all I keep hearing as well, and it'll be interesting to get your points on this. Oh, we have to wait 7 months for Ten Hag. We're Man United. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why can't we go and negotiate with Ajax to say, do you know what? We're Manchester United. Do you want this job or not? And do you honestly think, like, I think we've got a good chance of landing Ten Hag because of Xavi going to Barcelona. Because I feel like Ten Hag was one of them that was going to make that natural progression to that Barcelona job, like so many Ajax managers have in the past, and players.
I can tell you for a fact he was second man for the job. I can tell you for a fact he was. I can tell you for a fact, number one for the job to get the Barcelona job was Xavi. Xavi was the number one target. Number two was Ten Hag. And no disrespect to Xavi, but if I was Ten Hag, I'd feel insulted. Xavi's a Barcelona legend. Xavi's a Barcelona legend.
Go and watch how
Ten Hag's an elite manager.
Xavi, mate.
Yeah.
See, I don't agree with that, mate. Some of the football played under Xavi was fantastic.
I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying you look at it right now though, Xavi. I'm not saying he's a crap manager. I'm just saying right now, like, he's a legend. But in terms of managers right now, Ten Hag's in the elite level. Like, he is in that elite level. Xavi isn't there yet. But then again, he is a good manager. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying the better option is Ten Hag.
I know, mate. And I feel like with Ten Hag as well, he's proven, like, everybody loves Ajax. Whoever loves football, everybody loves Ajax. You know what I mean? Like, the way that the club work their academy, the way that they play their football, the way that they recruit, they do things right. But I think someone made a great comment in the comments to say they're run very well from top to bottom. Like, whereas we're not. So that's another thing that I know that we're not necessarily here to talk about that, but that has a massive part as well. Like, managers come and work with that toxic environment as well, where the top elite managers going to want to come and put their reputation on the line to manage Man United. But the reason why I'd go for Ten Hag, if we can get him, is because I feel like he can recruit well as well, and he doesn't just buy superstars. He's going to buy players that fit in his systems. Like Struan racked off a list of them earlier. If De Jong goes, Gravenberch comes in, Antony comes in when Ziyech goes. The same sort of players, but just not like they play the same way. Antony's not as good as Ziyech, but he's a fantastic little young player, and he's got a massive and he's got a philosophy, what he believes in, and he buys the players, and it goes back to the basics of the recruitment.
Well, that was awkward. I think I'm not sure what happened there. That's awkward. I think he's been booted out to the. Well, we do it as a joke in our group chat. He's been booted to the shadow realm. If you know that reference, then yeah, Jamie getting booted is definitely new. That's funny. I would be up for that. I'm just gonna say there's a few comments here that would actually be brilliant. Is Vicky, when it comes to chatting on here, you are more than welcome anytime. You are more than welcome, like to chat on here. Like, it's not about credentials, having fun and just talking. That's all we all do. We live, breathe, die football. And exactly, Billy, you're spot on. You're spot on. And I'm going to end on this comment. I'm going to get you guys to say your socials up, but I'm going to end on this comment. Jamie has been cancelled. But I'm going to end on this one. As I get you to shout your socials out, I'm just going to get a yes or no from the two of you. Then I get you to shout your. Oh, and here's Jamie. He's back from the hell.
Sorry, lads.
You were cancelled. I'm just going to get like a yes or no from the previous. As I get you to shout your socials out. We'll start with Struan. Can you shout your socials out, bud? Thanks for coming on. And can you also answer this question from your own point of view as well?
I think there is positives. You know, I think obviously there's a lot of negativity going on at Man United, but it is still one of the biggest teams in world football, arguably the biggest in England. You know, I think a lot of people would still want the job. I can understand the owners are definitely a problem with that as well. But just looking at the squad, I think it's a fantastic squad that any manager coming into would be pretty happy to take over. You've got some fantastic talent in there, great set of young players coming through as well. So I think it is difficult coming into the toxic environment, and we've seen on social media as well how negative it is. But I'd like to think anyway, that there are still a lot of positives to taking the United job. And my Twitter is just Garvey2000.
Yep, which is a pleasure. And yourself, Jamie, you shout your socials out, bud, and you also your response to this question as well from Vicar.
Can you imagine any manager want to walk into a toxic environment? Well, it's a very good question. It's you're not just coming into as a club. Anyone would want to manage Man United, but I feel like they're definitely putting their reputation on the line when they're coming and working underneath that ownership. And the reality of it is, and it hurts me to say it, until they're gone, we're never going to really be ran properly anyway. So we're always going to be fighting with one hand tied behind our back, because it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I won't go into it too much anyway. But I agree with Struan. Like, there's so many reasons to want to be the Man United manager. Of course there is. It's the biggest club in the world, in my opinion. But just my socials as well. If you want to catch me on Instagram or Twitter, they're both the same. It's just at 1989. So got to give me a follow on any of them platforms. It will be good to link up with new people as always.
Absolutely. And just before we come on to the league, it has a thing I just want to say, Billy, thanks very much, mate. Glad we entertained you this evening. Trevor as well. And Lee, can we get you to shout your social out, bud, and also your thoughts on Vicky's question as well as we close the show?
Yeah. It's a great question, to be honest, Vicky. For me, like the lads have said, for me, United is still one of, if not the biggest clubs in the world. The support we've got around the world is still phenomenal. And for me, if you are a serious manager and you want to be known as one of the best managers in the world, you want to take an opportunity like this, try and turn the biggest club in the world around. You do that, you automatically become a club legend. So for me, if they want to seriously challenge themselves to be the best or one of the best in the world, you take it in a heartbeat for me. So again, it's a bit toxic at the minute. The owners, they like having a yes man. If you're not a yes man, you'd find it difficult. But yeah, for me, challenge accepted every day of the week and 2 days on a Sunday, mate.
Absolutely. And can I get you to check your social out as well? Like, where can we find you?
Lee Lozzie 84, mate, on Twitter.
And you can also find them on Talk of the Devils on a Friday with Keane and Phil Marsh as well. Fantastic trio. Probably, and I'm probably going to get slaughtered for this, but it's probably a better trio than Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets. Because we don't care about Messi, because we all know the only real GOAT is Ronaldo. This has been Devil's Advocate on the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. I'm Reece, that's Struan, Jamie, and on the bottom right-hand side, we've got Lee Lawrence, former Man United player and also a Youth Academy player. It's great to have you guys on. Guys, thank you for joining us this evening.
Great
it's
show,
an absolute
fellas.
pleasure.
Cheers,
Hit the
guys.
like button, share, subscribe,
Cheers.
and remember, Man United fans, we might be in a rough time right now, but we will be back. Good night, folks.